Welcome back to Martha's Backyard Farm. I'm glad you're here. If this is your first time visiting the channel, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a practical tip straight from the garden. Today, I want to talk about something every backyard gardener in America needs to hear before tick season peaks. Here's the truth that most people get wrong. They spend their weekends mowing the lawn, thinking that shorter grass means fewer ticks. But ticks don't live in your lawn. They live in the leaf litter along your fence line, in the wood pile by the shed, in the shaded edge, where your yard meets the tree line. Mowing does almost nothing. The real battle happens at the perimeter, and most of us aren't even fighting there. Tick populations across North America are at the highest recorded levels in history. The CDC reports that Lyme disease cases have tripled over the last 15 years. And there's a newer threat most people still haven't heard of called alpha-gal syndrome, a condition triggered by a lone star tick bite that leaves you allergic to red meat and dairy for the rest of your life. There are now over 450,000 suspected cases in the United States alone. Here's what makes that number even more alarming. A single female deer tick lays between 2,000 and 6,000 eggs in her lifetime. So, if you spotted one tick on your property last week, you don't have one tick. You have a colony in the making. Today I'm sharing 5 layers of protection, starting with the cheapest option that costs less than $5 and keeps working season after season, all the way to a garden design strategy that most channels have never talked about. Let's get into it. Before I tell you what works, I want to make sure you understand where ticks actually live, because that changes everything about how you fight them. Ticks do not live in short, open grass. They need moisture to survive, specifically a relative humidity above 80% in their immediate environment. Drop below that threshold and they dehydrate and die within hours. That is why you will almost never find a tick sitting in the middle of your sunny lawn. What you will find them in is the leaf litter along your fence line, the shaded wood pile beside your shed, the dense overgrowth where your backyard meets the tree line, and any corner of your property that stays cool, dark, and damp. That transition zone between your manicured yard and the wild edge is where the real problem lives. And that is exactly where your protection needs to be focused. Now, tick season is not the same everywhere in the country, and knowing your region changes how you plan. If you live in the South, in states like Florida, Georgia, or Texas, ticks can be active every single month of the year, with no true off-season. In the Northeast and Midwest, activity peaks hard between May and June, and here is the window that catches most people off guard. Late May through June is when both adult ticks and the tiny nymphal ticks are active at the same time. Those nymphs are no bigger than a poppy seed. They are almost invisible, and they are responsible for the majority of Lyme disease transmissions because people simply do not see them. So now that you know where ticks hide and when they strike, let me tell you what actually stops them. The most effective natural compound for yard perimeter protection is cedar wood oil, and the science behind it goes deeper than most people realize. The key active component is cedrol, the alcohol found naturally in cedar oil, and research has shown that cedrol killed 100% of black-legged tick nymphs in controlled testing. It works through 3 simultaneous mechanisms. It overwhelms the tick's sensory organs so they cannot locate a host. It disrupts their respiration by blocking the tiny breathing holes along the side of their body, called spiracles, and it dissolves their outer exoskeleton on direct contact. That is not one line of defense. That is 3 hitting at once. The fastest way to put this to work is with a ready-made product called Wondercide, a cedar oil and sesame oil concentrate that you spray directly along your lawn, perimeter, fence lines, and around the base of your deck. A 32-ounce bottle runs about $29, covers roughly 5,000 square feet, and you reapply every 2 to 3 weeks during peak season. If you want the same protection at a fraction of the cost, you can mix your own in 3 minutes flat. 1 tablespoon of pure cedarwood essential oil, 1 cup of distilled water, and 1 tablespoon of witch hazel to keep the oil and water blended. Shake it before every use. Store it in a cool, dark cupboard, because direct sunlight breaks down the cedar compounds, and each batch costs you about $3 to $4. One $12 bottle of cedarwood essential oil makes over 16 batches, enough to cover an entire tick season for a typical yard. That is roughly 70% cheaper than the store-bought version for the same active ingredient doing the same job. Now here is where we move from seasonal maintenance into something that works for years without you touching it again. The spray, whether you buy it or mix it yourself, still requires reapplication every few weeks. What I am about to share with you is a one-time investment that creates a permanent physical barrier around your entire property. And it does not need refreshing for 2 to 3 years at a stretch. Western Red Cedar Wood Chips. Not the cheap dyed mulch you grab from the big box store. I mean actual cedar chips sold by weight at any landscape supply yard, typically running between $40 and $60 per cubic yard. Here is what you do. You lay a 3-foot wide band of those chips along every edge where your lawn meets the woods, your fence line, or your garden border. 3 inches deep all the way around. That is it. Ticks crawling in from the neighboring yard or the tree line have to cross that band to reach your family, and they cannot do it. Cedar chips are dry and hot at the surface, the exact 2 conditions ticks cannot survive. The Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station, which has been researching tick control for decades, confirmed that mulch barriers like this create statistically significant reductions in tick populations within the protected zone. 1 application. Years of protection. Now here is something most people do not know. You do not have to pay for those chips at all. Call your local tree service. Arborists regularly pay to dump cedar chips at landfills. Most crews will gladly drop a full truckload in your driveway for free if you catch them on a job day nearby. People have built complete perimeter barriers for nothing more than a 6-pack handed to the crew. That is a yard protected for years at essentially 0 cost. With the perimeter handled, let me give you the last layer that protects your body the second you step outside. You probably have this sitting in your garage right now. Duct tape, the wide gray classic kind. Here is the thing most people do not realize about how ticks reach your skin. They do not fall from trees, they climb. They sit at the tip of a blade of grass or a low leaf with their front legs extended, waiting to grab onto anything that brushes past. Once they latch on, they crawl upward, from your ankle to your calf, from your calf to your knee, and higher. Almost every tick bite happens between the ankle and the waist, because that is the climbing path they follow every single time. So before you step into tall grass or leaf litter, take a strip of duct tape and wrap it around the top of each sock, sticky side facing out, 1 or 2 bands thick. Any tick that grabs onto your shoe and begins climbing hits that sticky band and stops. They are physically trapped. When you come back inside, peel the tape off, fold it sticky side inward, and throw it away. It costs about 3 cents per ankle, it requires 0 chemistry, and it works 100% of the time because there is nothing for a tick to outsmart. Pair that tape with a cedar oil spray on your shoes and pant legs, and ticks now face 2 consecutive barriers before they can ever reach your skin. Most of them never make it past the first one. So, to bring these 4 methods together into a clear protocol, spray your perimeter with cedar oil, store-bought or homemade, every 2 to 3 weeks during peak season. Lay your cedar chip barrier along every wild edge of your property for long-term passive protection. And every time you head into the yard during tick season, wrap a strip of duct tape around each ankle before you take a single step into the grass. Here is the part that most tick control videos never get to. And honestly, it is the layer that separates a yard that just manages ticks from a yard that genuinely fights back on its own. What I am talking about is designing your garden intentionally, using specific plants and natural predators to build a living defense system that works around the clock without you lifting a finger. Let me start with the plants, because this is where gardeners have a real advantage that nobody talks about. Rosemary is one of the most powerful tick-repelling plants you can grow, and most American homes already have the right conditions for it. The natural oils in rosemary interfere directly with the tick's sensory system, disrupting its ability to locate a host. Plant it in well-draining sandy or loamy soil with full sun, and it will thrive with very little attention, growing up to 6 feet tall along a fence line or walkway. Next is chrysanthemum, and this one deserves more credit than it gets. Mums contain a compound called pyrethrin, a natural neurotoxin that does not just repel ticks but actually kills them. Plant them in rich, moist soil, with full sun in zones 3 through 9, and they pull double duty as some of the most beautiful fall color in any American garden. Lavender works along the same principle, its strong fragrance overwhelming the tick's ability to navigate, and it is low maintenance once established, drought-tolerant, and a magnet for pollinators you actually want in your garden. Wormwood rounds out the group with one of the most bitter and pungent natural scents in the plant world. Grow it along your border edges, in containers near the patio, or in hanging baskets, anywhere foot traffic is high. Now, here is something just as important, and it is a warning. If you have Japanese barberry growing in your yard right now, I want you to look at it differently after today. It is one of the most popular ornamental shrubs in American landscaping, and it is also one of the worst things you can have if you are trying to control ticks. Its dense, thorny branches grow close to the ground and trap moisture and shade underneath, creating exactly the cool, dark, humid microclimate that ticks need to survive. Research has shown that properties with Japanese barberry have significantly higher populations of disease-carrying ticks than properties without it. The smarter replacement is 9-bark, which offers stunning foliage in deep purple or bright gold, with a more open, airy structure that lets light and air flow through. Beyond plants, the most powerful allies you have are the ones that show up on their own if you let them. A single opossum passing through your yard can consume up to 5,000 ticks in one season. They are meticulous groomers, and they eat roughly 90 to 95% of any tick that tries to attach to them. You do not need to feed them or attract them deliberately. You simply need to stop chasing them off. If your property and local zoning allow it, a small flock of 6 to 8 guinea fowl is the gold standard in living tick control. These birds forage relentlessly through grass, leaf litter, and garden beds all day long, and ticks are among their favorite targets. For those who prefer a lower commitment option, install a few birdhouses, set out a clean bird bath, and plant native berry-producing shrubs along your fence line. Insect-eating birds will follow, and they will do their part. And finally, consider leaving one small corner of your yard deliberately natural, with some leaf litter and low ground cover. That is not a messy corner. That is a habitat for ground beetles, spiders, and other small predators that feed on tick larvae before they ever mature. A yard that supports its own ecosystem is a yard that defends itself. So let me bring this all together for you. You now have 5 layers of protection that work as a complete system. Cedar oil spray along your perimeter, store-bought or homemade, handles the immediate threat. The cedar chip barrier along every wild edge of your property works quietly for years without any upkeep. The duct tape around your ankles stops ticks before they ever reach your skin. And the garden design layer, the right plants, the right allies, the right habitat, turns your yard into an ecosystem that actively defends itself every single day. No toxic chemicals, no expensive pest control contracts. Just smart, intentional choices that build on each other season after season. That is what real gardening looks like to me. Not just growing things, but understanding the living system around you and working with it instead of against it. If this video helped you today, share it with a neighbor or a friend who spends time in the yard. Drop a comment below and tell me which method you are going to try first. And if you are not subscribed to Martha's Backyard Farm yet, now is a great time to join us. There is a lot more coming your way. I will see you in the next one.